Today, I really want to take some time to talk about assumptions and how assumptions really create more problems for us. We often are looking for answers, and if we don't get those immediate answers, we automatically create a certain belief system in our minds. Usually we create belief systems that perhaps are the worst case scenario. When we make assumptions, we are really creating blocks in our lives, depending on what the assumption is. We don't know what people are thinking. We don't know what people are feeling, but we are automatic to assume that people may think and feel the way that we do. People can guess what we're thinking and feeling, and that often creates unnecessary drama, unnecessary problems. So I often find that in relationships, especially in a relationship that is starting out, or if you're trying to reconnect with somebody, the person that you're interested in may say or do something that can cause a certain feeling or belief inside of you. Let's say you are really interested in somebody and that person is sending you mixed signals. I see this a lot nowadays. Two people like each other, they don't communicate. They don't express how they truly feel. They're not vulnerable. They play these mind games, these guessing games. And often in these little hints that they throw out, one person can be hinting at the other, and the other person can interpret it the wrong way. They can make an assumption. There's a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. In that book, the author talks about 4 agreements, and I'll read them right now. The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. The second one is don't take anything personally. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. And the last agreement is always do your best. I always have to remind myself to stop making assumptions, because automatically our brains are wired to create a story in our minds that may not be true. And if you're not aware of this, you can create an assumption, and that assumption can be completely false, and that can lead to you behaving a certain way, you behaving differently to certain people that are around you, you assuming that they think you know how you're thinking or feeling. And that can also ultimately just push people away from you. So the whole point of this is especially when you're dating, don't create assumptions. Don't make assumptions in your head. I think the best thing to do is, if you start to feel like you're creating an assumption or you are creating a story in your mind, the best thing to do is to just communicate, ask open-ended questions, and try to understand the person. Because often we are our own worst enemies. And if we're not careful, we can take a really good relationship and ruin it simply because we are making assumptions and creating false narratives in our minds. Try to decipher the stories that you create in your head, the assumptions that you make on others. Take the time and really ask yourself, is this real? Or is this what my mind is telling me to think? Is this the ego talking? You would be surprised at how much time and energy you will save simply by asking questions and not making assumptions. And that applies to different areas of our lives. But I often find that it really hurts us the most in our personal relationships, with family, with friends, with love relationships, especially in love relationships. I see that a lot. And I've experienced that myself too, where there are couples that, the relationship ends all by assumptions, right? Not having that open communication. Communication is key. It's key for everything. And I think that if we have that awareness of our ways of thinking, and we decipher our thoughts and our feelings openly to understand if what we believe is true or not. Just take a moment to reflect on that. Are you making assumptions? Are you ruining good relationships because of your assumptions and your beliefs? What can you do to undo that? And that's why I say communication. If you want to undo it, communicate. Just ask the questions. I know it may be hard for some of you to just openly ask, especially when you're dating somebody and there's a hint here, a hint there being thrown around everywhere. Just ask questions. Try to understand the other person. See where they're coming from. Okay? Hope that helps. Thank you.